Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So, in today's video, I'm joined by my dear friend Alice Autum Strange, and
Hi.
we're going to be talking about a process called name optimization. So, if you look at my name on this recording, you'll see it says Love Rose Jackie O'Malley. So, that is my optimized name. And so, what is an optimized name? What is name optimization within the soul contract system? It is essentially an intentional name change. So if you've seen some of my videos about overlays, you understand how the soul contract generally looks at when you have changed your name. And name optimization is essentially saying, let's intentionally choose a name for you in order to bring new energies into your life. And this is actually a tradition that's found in many cultures around the world. I have friends from Thailand who say, oh my God, this is so common. People just change their names all the time. And this was found in the Jewish tradition as well. If someone was maybe going through something, the rabbi might say, let's give you a new name, let's change your name. So this is sort of based in that tradition. And there are kind of two main reasons or two main factors you're looking at when you're optimizing someone's name. And that's what are going to be the energies or the numbers that are going to be the most useful in helping you work through some of the challenges from your birth chart. And very often people are wanting to optimize their name because the energies, the numbers in their birth charts are kind of difficult. And they're maybe needing a little bit more assistance, a little more help, some new tools to help them work through that. So we're looking at that as one of the main factors. And also considering any other names the person has had as well, how that fits in all of their names. But we're also looking at, hey, who are you trying to become? What's something you're trying to do in your life right now? And what energies are going to be the most helpful with that? So maybe someone's intention is to start a business. They are, newly a parent. They are trying to write a book, whatever it is that you are trying to do and become in your life. What are the energies that we can call in to help with that? So, Alice, this is your optimized name, Alice Autum Strange. What was the motivation for you in wanting to do the name optimization process?
I think the biggest motivator was just the chance, the what if, I'm a kind of person I don't like to miss out on the what ifs.
Yeah.
Um, but I was working through some hard energies. We sat down, we talked about the things that were in, my names that I've had and how they kind of all piled up to create a really complex picture of exactly the things I had been going through. And so it wasn't hard for me to decide that this was something that was really helpful for me or would be in the future. And it turned out it really was.
Yeah. And you do have some of those energies that are challenging that when you see them in someone's chart, and especially then the combination of those energies, that's where, as a practitioner, I might say to someone, well, let me tell you about this process. Do you want to think about it? And you right away were like, yes, I'm so down. Let's do it. It's so interesting for myself that I was so anti name optimization when I first kind of came into this work and like heard about it. Because for myself, I was like, well, we choose these lessons. Isn't it kind of giving up to change your name? And I came to the point of, I kind of moved from there of like, no, name optimization is a bad thing to, well, you're not in everybody's situation. And, you've only kind of known about this system for a little while and you're young, you're still working on these energies. But someone who's maybe in their 50s and have been dealing with these energies for a long time, they're kind of like, I'm tired and they're wanting some help. So I came to the point of, okay, I started at optimization, no, I don't get it, I don't like it, I'm not going to talk to people about it, to okay, well, maybe it's not for me in my journey, but like it could work for someone else. But I'm probably still not going to talk about it because it's not my favorite thing, to okay, I'm getting it now and I'm going to talk to people about it and I'm going to present it as an opportunity and as an option and see how they feel. And then I moved to, maybe it's just not something I want to do right now. But if I ever wanted to optimize my name, what might be good? Like what energies might be there? And I kind of was just like looking at my chart and being like, well, this energy here could be good, and this energy, and I guess it'll depend what I'm trying to do at that time. And then it was so interesting. I ended up in a meditation, and I kind of had this name come to me, the name of love, of like, that's one of the things from my own lessons, like being open to receiving love. And I just thought about how nice it is to be called love. And so I looked it up, I checked the numbers, and I was like, oh, oh, okay. And then this was in the summer, last summer. So it's been a solid 6 to 8 months. And at first it was sort of like I still was sort of grappling with, do I want to do it? Because I was like, I can kind of see that it's who I'm growing into. I could almost see myself being called love in the future, but I don't want to tell people not to call me Lauren right now. I don't know. And I started using it just on like anytime I order a package, I would kind of use that name, like, or I might have it on Zoom, or I might have it in some places. So I was kind of like, I'm okay with it written. And it's interesting because in January, during the full moon, I started channeling. I had these channeling abilities come in. And what's really interesting is there are two 10-1s in the optimized name of Lauren of Love Rose Jaffe O'Malley. And 10-1 again is so much about channeling. And so it really made me realize that, like, okay, yeah, I didn't use this all the time, right? That's what the suggestion we usually give to people is you want to use it as much as you can. That helps to call in the energy. And it's like, oh, I didn't have to use it everywhere all the time. I still call that energy, and I still can see how this energy is playing out in my life, even though I'm not as fully committed. So you have gone more of that traditional path of like
Yeah.
using it all the time. Was that a challenge for you? Was there ever, like, you were just so kind of gung ho from the beginning? Was there anything internally of like, I don't know about this?
I think when we first, like when you first mentioned like changing your name, I really didn't understand the process or anything about it really. So there was a hesitation of like, I love Alice Strange. I would never change Alice Strange. Like that's me. Like I don't, but then it was like, well, like we can tweak, we can like make small changes. And I was like a little more open to that. And then I thought about it and I really talked about it with my partner. I wrote out like as if I was signing a signature, a couple different things, and I realized like there are some names that kind of fit with Alice Strange that sound right, like they feel right. And so I kind of played with that idea. I stayed really open. I talked to you about different things that popped into my head, and we, I'm I live for the moment, man. I'm not the kind of person who is very, like strict in my ways all the time. I like to kind of just take risks and change things randomly. I'm kind of an adventure seeker in a way. So it was just one of those things that like I liked it. I played around with it. It felt right. And I was just like, this is it. Like, this is it. And I use my Zoom. Like the first thing I changed was my Zoom. Like when we talk about calling in the energy, it was Alice Autumn Strange on Google Meet everywhere I went. And I probably do like 3 or 4 Zoom meetings a week. So it was like I was using it a lot. And I also used it on packages. I also started calling myself that in every podcast episode. And so it was like I'm really embracing it. And it just came so naturally. And the energies really came in fast that way for sure.
I love that. And it is interesting because when we looked at the numbers, and because I was like, this could come in really strong, it might be the sort of name that you don't need forever. Like we both kind of had this sense of, I don't know that this is going to be the name that you are always going to use, but it's going to create a lot of change in your life, and then we can sort of see what other names come up. And you were like, yeah, I had that same sense. Other people I've talked to kind of have that same sense of like, this is probably not going to be the forever name. Like we both kind of had that feeling of like, there will be a change. But since it's been a few months now, I mean, is it feeling more like it's going to stay for a while, or are you still kind of feeling like it is going to be temporary?
I feel like we have empires in the history of the world. You know, we have the insert name here, empire. This is the
Yeah.
Alice Autumn Strange empire. Like we're living up
Yeah.
this energy. I'm going through so much, you know, so much change in my life that it's kind of like this name is for this era. And right
Yes.
now I feel like I'm deep in that era. I'm not even like
Yeah.
halfway through that era,
Yeah.
but I still very much feel like there's another name. I don't know what it is yet, but there's another name for when we're settling down, when we're um, in our knowledge, maybe more of a hermit, maybe more of a like a crone type energy. Like those are all things that I really relate to as like future goals. So I already know kind of the vibe of what I want my name to eventually be. But yeah, Alice Autumn Strange is where we're at now. It feels right. It feels good. And it's definitely making a lot of changes in my life. So
Yeah. I mean, because it's one of those things like it did for me, even like it, you did feel so almost at home with it, so easy. Like it was so easy, even for myself to kind of adapt to and like to add on. Like I changed your contact in my phone because it started to feel naked without the autumn there. I was just like, wait, no, it needs the autumn. But yeah, and so it is just again really interesting. And that's why I love to kind of bring these two approaches. And I think for myself as a practitioner, based off of my own way of having used the name optimization process, like I'm definitely going to kind of like bring a little bit more of that approach where I think a lot of other practitioners, it is that sense of like I guess in the what I should kind of clarify is it's almost like for me it is so much more of the calling in of the energy in terms of who I want to be and less about overcoming the struggles of my birth chart, right? Like I don't necessarily feel like I have these challenges, and that's why for myself I kind of feel okay going back and forth between the names. Whereas like I know a lot of practitioners, they tend to work more with people where it's like the numbers in your name are a challenge. And so we are trying to address that challenge. So you don't want to be using that name as much. It's not doing you any favors. So I definitely see that being something like approach that I bring in where it's more like the what are you trying to call in? Who are you trying to be? How can these energies be useful to you? And as you say, it's for a season, right? It's for an era. Like this can be the era of that name, but you might go back to just using just your first and last because a lot of that's the thing that we should mention, right? Like how what does it mean to really change your name? For yourself, it was adding in a middle name. For myself, it meant kind of changing my first name, which is again one of the reasons I think it was a little trickier. It wasn't just like adding something in, it was like changing something. And Lauren is not a name that's necessarily like nicknamed a lot. So it's like I'm used to being called Lauren. It's not even like I'm used to being called something other than Lauren. It's like I'm used to being called Lauren. And more recently, now that I really have had some of this channeling come online, I mean, I was already kind of feeling of like maybe it's a little bit more of like a spiritual name and all of that, obviously. But especially with this channeling coming online, I'm like, yes, it's kind of is this distinction where it's like Lauren is still my human name, if you will. Like it is still me and my humanness. And it's kind of the way that I used to call my inner child, like I would say Lauren Rose, like that was like the name I gave for my inner child. So it's kind of that same sense. Like Lauren is still absolutely me as a human, but like Love Rose Jaffe O'Malley is then this name that I can use to call in these higher frequency energies and maybe like who I can think of in a way, kind of like Beyonce, Sasha Fierce, right? Like it's still Beyonce. And even now she has kind of said, she's like, I don't even need Sasha Fierce anymore, right? So like that's kind of where I'm at right now of like, right now, Love Rose Jaffe O'Malley is, I love to call that in. I love to think about the way those energies can help and assist me on my journey. And I may not always feel the need to use that name to get there, or I may still feel like it represents part of my higher self. Because like one of the things that I think about, like the thing that kind of came about for having me have this name come to me was I was doing this like restructuring belief and this sort of mantra of like, I am love, I am love. And, I thought about that and I was like, oh, that's kind of like when you say who you are, right? Like, I am like your name and all of that. But also I really think about like source and the universe. We say all of that is love. And so in a way it is absolutely the name of my higher self, in the sense of like my higher self is very much part of source and part of the universe. Like that is love. Um, and in that sense, because I am the universe, I too am love, but it's kind of like the part of me that is human is Lauren. And it would feel, I do, at least where I'm at now. And again, this could change. This could change in 2 years. It could change in 20 years. I'm still like, I don't know that I would ever let go of that name of Lauren, because it would almost feel like letting go of this more human side to me, but where like both can exist at once.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's interesting to hear that point of view because that's not at all how mine was at all. It
Yeah.
Alice Strange was definitely something that I was very, very close to. It's I love it. It's my name, you know, but I've had a lot of name changes in my life. You know, we looked at my whole thing. There's a lot of them and nicknames and things like that. So I guess I wasn't as attached to any particular name. Um, and I really thought it was interesting when you pointed out that you were kind of more about calling in the energies rather than fixing some of the harder energies in your other charts. And I think that mine pretty much is just about fixing all of that other stuff. And maybe not just about, but there are some things I want to call in, but a lot of the things I'm calling in are for healing and transmuting and changing the things that weren't working for me, that I wasn't really getting through that easily. And of course, you know, Alice Autumn Strange came about very synchronistically. I feel like it kind of found me, you know, it kind of
Yeah.
found me. I liked autumn spelled the normal way, but I think it was you had actually typoed and pulled everything up and
Yeah. I'm trying to
or you
remember. I think I
something
did. I'm trying to remember if I intentionally checked it, but like I'm the sort of person like who doesn't remember how to spell the word autumn generally. So you're right. I think I did look it up wrong first and then realized, oh, that's not how you spell autumn. And then looked at it spelled correctly. And I was like, well,
we
that
were
doesn't
like,
even work.
no,
I was like, that doesn't
no.
even work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of found me in a way, and it was special kind of in a way. Like I never would have picked it on my own. So I felt like it was given to me kind of outside of my own, you know, like I inspired it for sure, but it was given to me kind of from a place that I never would have found it if it hadn't just been kind of placed right in my lap. So yeah, there were some major differences in our stories, but I think it's really interesting to kind of have both of them play out, you know, just between two different people.
Yeah. And I'm curious because, like, part of it for me, one of the things that has made it a little trickier to feel like I'm just going to totally embrace this change is like, love is not per se this like commonly used name. So there's that factor of like, I have to like not care what anybody is going to think in using this, which is not always easy for me. And do you feel like one of the things that maybe has made it easier for you to adopt that name is like, if people didn't know, like that would just easily be the name on your birth certificate anyway?
Partially, I think that's part of it,
Yeah.
but autumn spelled differently.
True.
It
Because you have that element as well. Yeah, that's so
I'm
true.
like, but people are gonna think I just don't know how to spell like and I had to like really get out of my head and just be like, nah, like it's a name, dude. Like we're good with it. But like whenever I do interviews, I always have to tell them like, yes, autumn is spelled this strange way, and you have to make sure it's right, or it's not gonna be my name. And yeah, it's I've kind of just kind of become endeared to the name that way, where it's like it's weird and it's special, and that's okay. I like it.
Yeah. And, it just made me think about when you talk about like you need to write it this way, is that we can look up addresses as well within the system. And it makes a difference in my address because I live in an apartment. Like, do I put because you basically look at the first line, right, for the address. And so if I put the apartment number along with my main address, which is really what I would usually do, it's a different energy. Like when I have the apartment number on line two, so it's really just like the building number or the building address. it has like a 13-4. It just has different energy. And so it made me be like, oh, I'm gonna change the way I write my address now to call in this different energy. So yeah, it is interesting when you have to start to be like a little bit more attentive of like, and I think about it now in times where I'm like, what name am I using? And I think one of the reasons for me that initially I kind of was like, I need to choose one is I have, sevens in my chart, and sevens are that Gemini energy, and you wear a mask, and it's all about learning to be your authentic self. And so I was very much like, if I try to be both of these people, then it's not authentic, right? And it took me until recently to realize that I also have eights in my chart, and eights are chameleon. And I was like, it's not that you're sevens and only one of these is the authentic self. And if you have to choose one or it's not authentic, it's like, no, it's chameleon. And you kind of decide in the sense in the moment which of these are suiting me better, and having conversations like this and being like, this is how I feel about it. That's the authenticity. It's not that you have to per se, like, yes, you need to be one person, but it's not that you have to have this one name to represent you and it's going to perfectly represent you. The authenticity is the sharing in, this is how I feel about these things that I don't even really know for sure, and I'm having an identity crisis. Because then I'm also like, with the naming lady, rechanging the business, and then starting to feel like, should I use Love Rose Jaffiel Valley as a business name? Like, have I already outgrown the naming lady? Because I'll be honest, I really see now that this channeling has really opened, that that's going to be such a huge part of what I do. And it's not what I'm doing right now, right? I'm doing the soul contract in the business and like the business names and all of that. But it's like the channeling is going to be such a huge part where it's like, well, the naming lady doesn't fit for that. And so part of me then became like, do I change the name again? Oh my God. Like, I'm in identity. Okay, I'm not in crisis anymore, but I was definitely having some identity crisis going on. And now I'm just much more in this place of acceptance, right? Like,
Yeah.
eras and phases, and that channeling stuff is still new. That's not center of my business yet. So you don't necessarily need to change your name yet. And to be honest, where the naming lady came from is I was saying to people like, I really want to have a lot of word of mouth where someone knows their friend is starting a new business and they're like, you need to go work with the naming lady, And so I was realizing that I was like, even when the business was called Name My Business, I was calling myself that.
Mhm.
So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like, yeah, it'll still kind of be this moniker, even if it's not my business name per se in the future. Like that's still going to be this part of me. And that's the same with, again, the Lovers Jaffe O'Malley and Lauren Jaffe O'Malley. Like these are all a part of me. And
Mhm.
again, being authentic, being one person doesn't just mean being one sided.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of feel like just like we have certain friends who use a particular nickname or like a partner who might call us by like a pet name or like
Yeah.
anything. It's all kind of reminiscent of that idea where it's like I am, Lauren, I am who I am, but I'm also, sweetheart, and I'm also like this to my mother, and I'm this to my friend. And it's not that it's not you, it's that those are all facets of you, just all encapsulated by different names as one person. Like, I don't know. I have those eights, but I don't have those sevens. So it's kind of for me, it seems very natural to just whatever, call me whatever.
Yeah. So overall, would you suggest or recommend name optimization as a process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it was altogether just so powerful. And I mean, it's almost the end of February now, and we did this at the beginning of November, like as when I started doing all of the changes. And even still, I feel like I'm still in the everything's getting shaken up stage. Like it's like my life has been put into a jar and just because everything's just kind of either coming fully in or leaving completely. And everything is changing. And I didn't realize how powerful the energy was going to be at all. But like I kind of expected it to be subtle. I expected it to be like, oh, it's just a name. Like I'm still living my life the same. Mm-mm, girl. Mm-mm. But I'm glad I didn't know because I probably would have been nervous and then I might not have done it. But I'm glad I did because I'm definitely going where I needed to go. You know, it's not always what I expected, but I'm always trending in the right direction. So I would absolutely encourage everybody to just be kind of aware where their chart is, like what kind of things would be challenging for them, and then really consider like, is changing my name right for me? Because I think the name optimization has been absolutely so important in this phase of my life.
Yeah. And like you say, you're still so much in the change period. And like it is all still a bit of a kind of ups and downs and rocky. And so like I am so excited to see where you end up on the other side, right? It's kind of like this is the difficulty of because change is difficult. And when you're uncertain of where you're gonna land, that can be scary and a challenge. And so it's like I'm so excited to see where you do end up on the other side and like
Yeah.
where you're able to really reflect back and be like, okay, this is where it brought me to. And
Yeah.
eventually to see, I mean, to see in a way like how long you this kind of name stays around. And then when it feels like its time has kind of completed, and like then the name that comes after that, like, and what those energies will be, I'm just like the curiosity factor. I'm like, oh my God,
Oh yeah.
I
When I let myself go down that rabbit hole of like, what if, what's gonna happen? Like it does get almost like giddy excited because
yeah.
it's like I'm kind of putting in all the hard work now. Like I'm chipping away at the lessons I need to learn and calling in all the little things that I need to um you know to build myself up with. And so it's like I really have no idea what this is going to look like even in a month. Like things are crazy changing. And so yeah, it's just like I get a little giddy. I get a little excited about like, ooh, what do I want to be? Where am I going to go? Like, what is this going to bring me to? And I'm absolutely sure it's going to be one of those things that kind of just happens. It's not going to be a lot of me sitting there overthinking and processing over and over. It's going to be given to me when it's time. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you okay sharing? I'm curious, like, what are some of the things that you imagine in these what ifs of like, where do you see yourself going?
So I have a lot of that student and teacher energy that we talk about
Yeah.
because you know we're both kind of there.
The
Uh,
12-3, we both have
yeah,
it. Yes.
yeah, and that has just been so instrumental in my life. And I feel like that's where I had to be to get myself started. And we have all of this other stuff that we've got to take care of because that's not an issue in my life. That's one of my favorite things about myself. And I really feel like that's probably going to be a really big part of where I end up. But I think it also, I'll probably shift more into a divine feminine kind of state, being very receptive, receiving, letting things flow, accepting, you know, life as it comes to me, rather than the very aggressive energy that I'm, you know, working with right now with the Alice Autumn Strange. It's very masculine driven of like, you know, getting things done and doing the hard work. So I feel like I'm going to end up in a more divine feminine state, maybe a more just kind of peaceful, tranquil, quiet minded kind of thing. And then probably calling in a lot of the things that really I love about myself and I love about my old names and the things that they had in them, you know. But I also don't want to overthink it too much. I don't want to kind of decide on anything because I
Yeah.
know that I'm never going to know the exact right perfect thing for me because you know,
We
I don't
can't
know how
know.
it'll all, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't know. You don't know how it'll play out. You can't read the
Yeah.
future. So yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Alice Autumn Strange, for joining me here today and sharing your story and experience. And I hope those listening, it kind of answers that question. What is name optimization? And maybe piques your curiosity and interest. And if you are, interested in a name optimization, definitely reach out. If you haven't had a birth chart reading before, we obviously need to establish where you're at and see if maybe this might be the right process for you. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today.